Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivana Dari Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivana Dari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjaviyare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjaviyare Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivana Dari Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivana Dari Sodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Tira Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjaviyare Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivana Dari Janna Vallabha Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yasodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Tira Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Janvispad Pranamangsa Pravi Jakacharya Astatursa Shishimad His Divine Grace Lacey Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananda Gauri Vaishnava Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Prem Sikha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivedanta Ki Jai Shri Radha Krishna Gogopiya Samakun Radhakun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Namanam Ki Jai Shri Maya Pranabdham Ki Jai Gangamai Ki Jai Jamunamai Ki Jai Tulsi Devi ki jai, Bhakti Devi ki jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki jai, Transcendental Book Distribution ki jai, Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Gaur Premanandi, how glorious some devotees, how glorious some devotees, how glorious some devotees, how glorious Shishi Guru and Shri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So reading from the Srimadbhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 25, Text number 11. Sonvishesa Manasaranam Bhabrama Prativing Prabhu Nanarupam Yadavindad Abhutsa Vimana Iva Sonvishesa Manasaranam Bhabrama Prativing Prabhu Nanarupam Yadavindat Abhutsa Vimana Iva Sonvasesa Mahana Saranam Bhabrama Prativing Prabhu Nanarupam Yadavindat Abhutsa Vimana Iva Sonvesa Mana Saranam Bhabrama Prativing Prabhu Nan Rupam Yadavindat Abhutsa Vimana Iva Sonvesa Mana Saranam Bhabrama Prativing Prabhu Nanarupam Yadavindat Bhabrama Prativing Prabhu Nanarupam Yadavindat Utsavanaya Bhabrama Prativing Prabhu Sa, that king Puranjana, Anvasesa Manaha, searching after Saranam, shelter. Bhabrama, traveled over. Prativim, the whole planet Earth. Prabhu, to become an independent master. Na, never. Anurupam, to his liking. Yada, when Avindat he could find, Abhut became, Sa he Vimana Morose Iva like. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. King Puranjana began to search for a suitable place to live, and thus he traveled all over the world. Even after a great deal of traveling, he could not find a place just to his liking. Finally, he became morose and disappointed. Purport. The travelings of Puranjana are similar to the travelings of the modern hippies. Generally, hippies are sons of great fathers and great families. It is not that they are always poor, but some way or another they abandon the shelter of their rich fathers and travel all over the world. It used to be a thing that even amongst the wealthy, they would the young the teenagers, they'd wear old clothes, right? Look like a hippie. As stated in this verse, the living entity wants to become Prabhu, or master. The word Prabhu means master, but actually the living entity is not a master. He is the eternal servant of God. When the living entity abandons the shelter of God, Krishna, and tries to become a Prabhu independently, he travels all over the creation. There are 8,400,000 species of life and millions and trillions of planets within the creation. The living entity wanders throughout these various types of bodies and throughout different planets, and thus he is like King Puranjana, who traveled all over the world looking for a suitable place to live. Sri Narottam Das Thakur has sung Karma Kanda, Jnana Kanda, Kevala, Vishara Bandha. The path of Karma Kanda, fruit of activities, and the path of Jnana Kanda, speculation, are just like strong pots of poison. Amrita Baliya Yebe Kaya Nana Yoni Saparapire. A person who mistakes this poison to be nectar and drinks it travels in different species of life. Kodharya Bhakshana Kare. And according to his body, he eats all types of abominable things. For instance, when they live in entity, there's a little mistake here on that. That's just misprint here. For instance, when the living entity is in the body of a hog, he eats stool. When the living entity is in the body of a crow, he eats all kinds of refuse, even pus and mucus, and enjoys it. Thus, Narottam Das Thakur points out that the living entity travels in different types of bodies and eats all kinds of abominable things. When he does not become ultimately happy, he becomes morose or takes to the ways of hippies. Thus, in this verse it is said, Na anurupam. Thus, the king could never find a place suitable for his purposes. This is because in any form of life and on any planet in the material world, the living entity cannot be happy because everything in the material world is unsuitable for the spirit soul. As stated in this verse, the living entity independently wants to become a Prabhu, but as soon as he gives up this idea and becomes a servant of God, Krishna, his happiness immediately begins. Therefore, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur sings, Miche Mayara Vase Yache Beshe Kacha Habu Dubu Bai. My dear living entity, why are you being carried away by the waves of Maya? As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Isvara Sarvabhutanam Hridasarjuna Tistati Brahmayan Sarvabhutani Yantraudhani Maya. The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, O Arjuna, and is directing the wanderings of all living entities who are seated as though on a machine made of the material energy. The living entity is carried in the machine of the body through so many species of life on so many planets. Therefore, Bhaktivinoda Thakur asked the living entity why he is being carried away in these bodily machines to be placed in so many different circumstances. He advises that one surmount the waves of Maya by surrendering unto Krishna. Jiv Krishna Das e Vishvasha Karle te ara dukkha nai. As soon as we confront Krishna, Krishna advises, Sarvadhamam pratyajya mamikam saranam braja aham tvam sarvapapabhyo mokshasyami ma sucha. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reaction. Do not fear. Thus we are immediately relieved from from traveling from one body to another and from one planet to another. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Brahmanda Brahmatekona Bhagavan Jeev. Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya-lila 19:151. If while traveling, a living entity becomes fortunate enough to become blessed by the association of devotees and to come to Krishna consciousness, his real life actually begins. This Krishna consciousness movement is giving all wandering living entities a chance to take to the shelter of Krishna and thus become happy. In this verse, the word vimana, iva, are very significant. In this material world, even the great King of Heaven is also full of anxiety. If even Lord Brahma is full of anxiety, what of these ordinary living entities who are working within this planet? Bhagavad Gita confirms in 8:16, Abhrama bhuvanaloka punaravartin Arjuna. From the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, all are places of misery where repeated birth and death take place. In the material world, a living entity is never satisfied, even in the position of Brahma or in the position of Indra or Chandra. One is full of anxiety simply because he has accepted this material world as a place of happiness. Om Jnanatamanandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshur Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Mukram Krotavatalang Pangunang Hayate Grim Yat Kripa Taraham Bande Shigarum Dinataranam Vanchikalpa Tribhusta Kripa Sindhu Jevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. In this world, everybody wants to be happy. Actually, everywhere, everybody wants to be happy. Because that's the nature of the soul, one of the natures. Eternality, knowledge, and bliss, these are the natures of the soul. But the living entity is in this material world, and because of being in this material world, it's very difficult to actually attain that happiness, because of this, mainly because of this bodily conception of life. This is the main problem in this world. But it's possible to become free of this bodily conception of life and understand our true nature. Prithu Maharaj, when he was speaking to his subjects, he said that if a living entity has these four qualities, then he'll live very happily wherever he goes. One is that if he has Brahminical qualities, if we have Brahminical qualities, then it's very auspicious. And what is that? Samodhamas taposhaucham, Shantir Arjame, Jnana Vijnanamaskam, Brahma Karma Svabhacham. Peacefulness, self-control, austere, pure, tolerant, honest, wisdom, knowledge, religiousness. If one has these qualities, then one lives a nice, sublime life. And therefore Prabhupada, he said he wanted to create brahmanas. There's so many sudras, right? Mostly sudras on the planet now. Some businessmen, some Vaishyas, practically no kshatriyas. Like you could have a picture of this. It's like the different parts of the body. The brahmana is the head, and the kshatriya is the arms, and the Vaishya is the belly, and the sudra is the legs. So what we have now in society is we have a body with no head, huge body, mostly legs, humongous legs, all right, just humongous legs. Belly, pretty good sized belly, yeah, big belly. No arms. There's no kshatriyas, no arms, no head. So humongous legs, humongous belly. You get a picture of that. No arms at all. There's no kshatriyas, and there's no head. So this is our situation. So Prabhupada wanted there to be a head in society. Very difficult to get a head. Or practically, as Prabhupada would say, it's headless. So, yeah, it's not easy to develop these Brahminical qualities in Kali Yuga. So that was the first thing he said, to have the Brahminical qualifications. And he said to be grateful. Gratitude. Gratitude is very important. It's like Vaisheshika Prabhu, when he distributes books, he would say, this is the yoga of gratitude. We should be grateful. So many things Krishna is giving us, so we should show our gratitude. And the best way to show gratitude to Krishna is by rendering devotional service, rendering service to Krishna. Krishna is doing so much for us. Even Krishna is doing so much for the atheists. You know? There's millionaire atheists out there just living a wonderful life. You know? No gratitude. So you know what their future is. Dark future. So gratitude is very important. And then he says to have good behavior. Good behavior. He says that a devotee's wealth is good behavior. Interesting. Sadachara. Sadachara means good behavior. Of course, that's there in the qualities of the Brahmana. Good behavior. And then he goes on to say, and if one takes guidance from an experienced devotee, we all have to take guidance. Of course, the most experienced devotee is Prabhupada. So we get a lot of guidance from Prabhupada. He said, everything is in my books. Everything is there. So we're all getting guidance. We're all going to work, and for the next 10,000 years, we're going to get guidance from Srila Prabhupada. So if we have these things, then Prita Maharaj, he said, then wherever one goes, one will only find opulence. Of course, the real opulence is just to have good consciousness. Yeah. You know, there's instance Prabhupada tells of this wealthy king in India, and he was traveling around, and he saw this sadhu sitting, chanting japa. And he tells the sadhu, is there anything I can get for you? Is there anything I can do for you? And the sadhu says, yeah, can you just move a little bit to the right or left? You're blocking the sun. Yeah. he just wanted the sunset. Anything else? No, I'm okay. I don't need anything. And it's mentioned that saints, saintly people, they would go into villages and they would be carrying nothing but their water pot. That was it, just very, very simply. Nowadays when people move from one place to another, big moving homes, right? But sadhus, just like any of the brahmacharis here, if you had to move somewhere for some reason, you practically just put it in one suitcase and, bas, that's it. Live very simply. So simple living, high thinking. And when Prithu Maharaj, when he made this statement, everybody in the assembly just said, "Sadhu, sadhu." When someone says something very sublime, then everybody in the audience says, "Sadhu, sadhu." They were so much appreciative of this great devotee. They had a lot of gratitude for Prithu Maharaj. So of course it's not easy in Kali Yuga to have good qualities, to advance in spiritual life. There's another instance of a sadhu who went to one kingdom, and this king was very appreciative. He had a lot of gratitude when sadhus would come to his kingdom. He would appreciate it very much, and he invited him into the palace, and he had him sit on his throne. And this king was very thoughtful. He said to the sadhu, "It's very difficult to advance in spiritual life. I want to advance. I want to be free of Maya so I could serve Krishna nicely." You know, these are saintly kings, right? Raja Rishis. So he wanted to advance in spiritual life. So he asked this sadhu, "Why is it that I want to advance in spiritual life, but it's so difficult?" So the sadhu, he got off the throne, and he went over and he embraced a pillar there in front of him in the palace, and he's embracing it, and he's shouting, "Let me go! Let me go! Let me go!" And the king was thinking, "Whoa, what's the message here?" So the sadhu goes and sits down, and he says, "This is the situation. You want to be free, but at the same time, you're so attached." This is the situation in the material world. Of course, a lot of people don't want to be detached. But for those very few that want to be detached, it's difficult, because we have this conditioning. We're conditioned to enjoying material life. Now we're hearing there's no happiness in material life, but still, we're thinking, because of that conditioning, there's something there. But there's nothing there. It's Maya. It's the illusion. It's like when Krishna went to Mathura, he was invited there for a wrestling match, and there were so many different personalities there in the audience. And it's described in the srimadbhagavatam that everybody saw Krishna in a different way, different opinion of Krishna. Like Mother Yasoda and Nanda Maharaj, they saw Krishna as their most loving child. And the kinsmen, the cowherd men, they thought, "Oh, he's our kinsman from Vrindavan." And there was yogis there, and they saw him, "Oh, he's a super soul." And then there is Kamsa. Kamsa saw him as death personified. And the wrestlers, they saw him as a thunderbolt. Yeah. And the beautiful girls there, they saw Krishna as the most beautiful male. So everybody was seeing Krishna in a different way. Yeah. So we as sadhakas, we're trying to see Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then when one actually becomes very advanced, then one could see Krishna in a different way. Just like mukti hitvanyata rupam swarupena vivasati. We all have our original swarups. And when we go back to the spiritual world, we're going to see Krishna in another way. We'll see Krishna as maybe our friend, or lover, or Krishna as my child, or something like that. what's kind of interesting is that everybody is in Maya. Even in Goloka Vrindavan, they're in Maya. But they're in a very wonderful type of Maya. They're called Yoga Maya. Like Mother Yasoda and it's like and Nandamars, they're thinking Krishna is their loving child. But he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So it's a nice Maya to be in. This is the Maya we want to be in. And the gopis, they just thought, Krishna is a very beautiful cowherd boy. He's so attractive. And Krishna's friends, they're seeing him as he's our friend, and they wrestle with him and jump on his shoulder and play with him. So they're all in Maya. But it's a nice Maya. Nice Maya to be in. And you go to Vaikuntha, they're also in Maya. They're thinking Vishnu is the Supreme. But he's not Supreme. Krishna's the Supreme. So wherever you go, you're going to find people in Maya. And then, of course, you come here, and this is the Maya that we don't want to be in. This is the Mahamaya, where people are completely in illusion, thinking that they're God. There is no God. I remember I was in the airport one time, and here's another opinion of God. I approached one guy, and he said, "You're Hare Krishna?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Oh, yeah, you're the guys that think that God is a little blue boy." I said, yeah, that's us. But he's much more than that. They don't understand that Krishna's much more than just being a little blue boy. Who else thought like that? Lord Brahma. He thought he was just a little blue boy, calling him God. So he tested him. So there's so many opinions, right? And a lot of people actually think that they're God, or you could become God. There's no God. So many opinions. So many places in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains his final opinion. The Bhagavad Gita is his final opinion. And Krishna's opinion is the best opinion. Because we have a tendency to sometimes make mistakes. Any of you had that experience? Yeah? We make mistakes. We have a tendency to be an illusion, imperfect senses, and the last one, cheating propensity. There's a lot of cheaters in the material world as well. It's like Prabhupada was in India, and devotees were preaching in this one city, and they found one newspaper, and there was in the newspaper there was this yogi in the newspaper, and he was advertising himself as being very detached. So there was a lot of Lakshmi in front of him, and he was like this, like he's not interested. Yeah, right. So devotees showed Prabhupada this, and Prabhupada said, "That's all nonsense. You could take a picture of me also like this." Because they'll use it in the service of Krishna. Proper utilization of Lakshmi. And Prabhupada gives the example of someone drops $100. Now one person will pick it up and he'll put it in his pocket. Right? Another person will just ignore it. Just, it's not mine. Another person picks it up and he tries to find the owner of it. So which is the best? Yeah, the one who tries to find the owner. Yeah. So everything belongs to Krishna. So therefore everything should be utilized in the service of Krishna. And if we try to utilize it in any other way, then we're not utilizing it properly. We're not seeing properly. So this is devotional service, is to utilize everything that can be utilized in the service of Krishna, in his service. And if we do that, then Krishna is pleased. And this is one of the characteristics of pure devotional service. You know, there's 6 characteristics of pure devotional service, and this is one of them. That by engaging in devotional service, Krishna is pleased. There's nothing else that pleases Krishna than devotional service. This is what pleases Krishna the most, is when people have a pure heart and they just want to please Krishna. So this is our goal, is to please Krishna, not to please our senses, not to please our mind, but to please the senses of Krishna. Hrishikena, Hrishikesha, Sevanam Bhakti Uchte, Sarvapadam Tatpratvena Nirmalam. That by running devotional service, we please the senses of Krishna. And there's 2 side effects is, our senses become purified, and what's the other one? Our senses become purified, and Sarva Parivinir Tatpratvena Hrisikena Sevanam Bhakti Uchate. What's the other one? That's right, become free of designation. We have so many designations. Yeah. Upadis. So by taking the devotional service, we become free of material designations. You know, we also have a pure designation, and we're the eternal servants of Krishna. That's another designation, but it's pure designation. So it's pleasing to Krishna. It's very rarely achieved. Pure devotional service is very rarely achieved. It's like, how many people are on this planet now? 7.5 billion, something like this. So how many people are interested in devotional service? Very few. And even people that come and take to Krishna consciousness, even get initiated, you know, chanting 16 rounds, even it's not uncommon for them to drift away, pulled away by Maya. This is very rarely achieved. It's the only means of attracting Krishna. Nothing else attracts Krishna but pure devotional service. So, like Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he said, just like there's some people, they say, well, if there's a God, then show me you exist, like demanding God. But Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he said, we should act in such a way that God wants to see us. Better consciousness, isn't it? Yeah. Atheists are so ridiculous. It's like, imagine, demanding to speak to the Prime Minister of England, or the President of the United States. I want to speak to the President. Things are not right here. I want to speak to him right now. I want to straighten the, No, you can't do that because he's superior materially. You can't. So Krishna is the most supreme, so you can't demand. But if you please Krishna, Atasha Krishna Namadi, Nabhavad Grim Ograimin, Sevan Mokhi Jiva, Swayameva Spratita. If we please Krishna by our devotional service, then he reveals himself. I'll give you an interesting example. I don't know if I've given this here, but it's we have some new people. In Gainesville, we have a nice preaching center. And every Friday night we have a big Harinam there. We have in the area where we have our preaching center is right near the university, U of F. 50,000 students, huge. So we have a nice Harinam there every Friday night. So this period I'm talking to you about is the time when Reagan was trying to be president. So, some people are voting for Reagan, some people are voting for other candidates. So one person was voting for Reagan. He drove by and he saw the devotees all fired up, chanting, and he thought, "Wow, these guys are fired up." So he got his sign and he jumped right in the middle of the Harinam, and he's jumping up and down with a sign, "Vote for Reagan." Yeah. And one newspaper reporter, he saw that and he said, "Oh, look at that, the Hare Krishnas are voting for Reagan." So he pulled over and he got his camera and took a picture, and next day, a front page. Nice picture of the devotees with vote for Reagan. That picture in the news, that one, the picture of the year in Florida. Yeah. So a few days later, Reagan became the president, right? So, Krishna's mercy, right? So somehow somebody got that picture and put it on the president's desk, Reagan's desk. He saw that picture. Wow, look at that. So the picture of this guy was there also. So Reagan said, go down to Gainesville, find this guy. Send him up. I want to have lunch with him in 3 days. So his Secret Servicemen flew down there, found the guy somehow, and they flew him up. He had lunch with the president. I mean, it's not easy to have lunch with the president, right? But if you pleased him, he pleased the president, so he got to eat lunch with the president. So similarly, if we please Krishna, we can go back to the spiritual world and we can have lunch with Krishna. Much better than having lunch with the president. Right? So we have to please Krishna. This will. And then we're satisfied. If we please Krishna, then we'll be satisfied. Yeah. So it's the highest liberation, actually. There's different types of liberation. So pure devotional service is the highest level of liberation. It's the way to become free of all material distress. In the material world, people are very distressed just due to this nature of this world. Now we have this coronavirus, so much anxiety. I was speaking to one devotee a couple of days ago, and he said, if this keeps on going, there's going to be riots. If it continues, if it continues on and on, people are just going to get fed up. And already there's so many protests. Yeah, there's already protests happening. So it's going to, a lot of anxiety. So, what to speak of so many other things, just our own mind and body and miseries coming from other living entities and nature, so much anxiety. And it's the only means, what is it? There's one more. Yeah, all auspicious, that's the last one. It's all auspicious. Pure devotional service is all auspicious. You can't miss, you can't lose. It's a win-win situation. Even there may not be much success in the service you're doing. Just like, let's say, devotee wants to build a temple. Now, if he just lays one brick to build this temple, that's so auspicious. That goes into his eternal bank account. If we do anything for Krishna, it goes into our eternal spiritual bank account. But materially, if you don't completely finish it, then you lose. Just like if someone wants to build a building and do a big business, but if he doesn't completely finish it, then he loses, right? So it's completely different. This devotional service and material service. So, any question or comment? Dravida Prabhu has a comment.
You were going through systematically, telling the 6 benefits of Bhakti Yoga. And one of them was that Krishna consciousness is the highest form of liberation. But the actual thing is that it derides even the conception of liberation. In other words, if you really become Krishna conscious, you don't care. It's like that famous verse from Bilal Mangal Thakur. As far as liberation goes, she's waiting at the door. But the real fruit is the vision of your beautiful adolescent form. So it's kind of that goal of liberation, which is so much revered by other transcendentalists, the impersonalists, the Gyanis and everything. That becomes insignificant over time. You're so enthralled with the service of Krishna and the pleasure that comes with it. And that's why you have these songs where, let me take birth, as an insect, as long as it's the insect. Bhaktivinoda sings in the house of a devotee. Janmani Janmani Ishware, Lord Chaitanya says. So it's just slightly...
Yeah, Lord Chaitanya even said, birth after birth. Yeah. So a devotee is not interested in liberation. He wants to serve Krishna and whatever Krishna wants. Of course, that's a very elevated, very elevated. I just want to serve Krishna. I don't care about even going to the spiritual world. Yes, Prabhu.
Thank you, Vijay Prabhu. Wonderful class. I had a short comment that might require correction, and then I had a question also, if that's okay.
Okay.
2 different parts of your class. The short comment is that same President Reagan who was appreciating the picture of his supporter with the Hare Krishnas, and maybe I'm wrong. This, might be like a Wikipedia thing where it winds up being completely wrong and needs citation or whatever. But I thought I had heard that later, when there was beginning to be a thaw between the U.S. and Russia, and he was meeting with Gorbachev, and one of the things on his list was the human rights of the Soviet Hare Krishnas. Has anyone else heard that?
Now, what did he said what?
I've heard here and there from devotees that when President Reagan began to meet with Gorbachev, one of the things on the list was the human rights of the Soviet Hare Krishnas, because of Prahlad and all the devotees that were doing all these protests.
So he kind of mentioned to him that free the Hare Krishnas?
I've heard that was actually... Have you heard that, Srila Prabhu?
That was prominent, but I'm not sure that connects to that picture.
No, I'm not saying it directly connects to the picture. I was just saying that I guess I was wondering...
That he had asked him of that, huh?
Yeah, and
wow.
you
heard that, Javita, also?
Yeah, it was a big
wow.
campaign, and it became one of the issues, because they put us into the cycle wars and all things. A lot of
persons, people dying,
And so that was, maybe, he saw that was a good publicity, because there's a lot of repression going on.
Wow. Well, that goes to his big time credit.
Yeah, so maybe we need to research it, but at least that's kind of there in the devotee community ether, because we both heard that. And then my question was earlier in your class. You were describing the kind of bottom heavy social body, and how the head is almost non-existent and the arms are just little scarecrow arms or whatever. Last night I'm towards the end, I'm just rereading Ocean of Mercy, Bhakti Maharaj's book, and that conversation about Varnashram, at least one of the references when Srila Prabhupada, the way he describes it, Srila Prabhupada, was looking sad actually, and Bhakti Maharaj, Prabhupada said that, my body is so sick and I can't do anything, but 50% of my work is not done. And Bhakti Maharaj is like, no, you've done everything, Srila Prabhupada, there's nothing to, feel incomplete about. He said, no, the establishing Varnashram like that, that Prabhupada was speaking like that. And then we hear elsewhere that had he gone on from London, he was going to go to New York. And then in a letter to, I believe, to Krishna Maharaj, he said he wanted to sit down in Gita Nagari and actually show the devotees how to do that, how to implement that. So I guess my question is, would we understand then that Prabhupada created a movement of Brahmins, like you were saying, Brahminical qualities. I mean, that's Prabhupada's first thrust was really creating the head, right? Creating the Brahmins. So is it then the duty of the Brahmins to organize society? Because what Prabhupada said to Bhakti Maharaj, what I was reading last night, was that as the movement expands, many people won't take directly to devotional service, but they need to be guided towards devotional service. Therefore, we need to implement Varnashram. I know it's a huge question, but anyway. Just sort of tied in there, so I was curious.
Varnashram.
Get your opinion.
But to establish Varnashram, it's a whole society, right? Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas. We're so small. Our society is so small now. So in order to establish Varnashram, we have to be a society. Now we're practically, if you look at the whole society, we're practically non-existent. So we're so small. I mean, how many initiated devotees are there? I mean, 60,000? Oh yes, something like 60,000. 70,000 or something. Not very many. Currently, there's one statistic, 70,000. So, not very many. You look at the whole planet. I mean, so we have to become much bigger in order for us to establish. Yeah, at least that's my understanding. So, the Varnashram. Divida, would you like to say something? Yeah.
Just one quick note about the Shudras, because you mentioned the Shudras, big legs, But we sometimes forget how, the qualities of the Shudras. I mean, there's a verse here, I'm not going to read this whole thing here, but in chapter 11 of the 7th canto, I think Prahlad, it's involved with Prahlad, and he's learning about the all the different qualities of the different varnas and ashrams. So he's going to discuss Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras. But before he begins, these are the general principles to be followed by all human beings. There's a huge list here: truthfulness, mercy, austerity, bathing twice a day, tolerance, discrimination, right? That's
these
not
are
what you
Sudras?
normally think about. Yeah, all human beings. In other words, then it goes into the Brahmins, Vaishyas, Shudras. Otherwise, you're an Antyaja. You're outside. That's the Chandalas and Mlechas outside, and that's where we
Oh, I see. Okay.
So
it's not even
Shudras
that's a compliment.
Yeah, being a Shudra
is a compliment.
It's not so easy. I don't even know if the legs are there. You maybe have some shoes,
Okay, Damodar behind you.
As you're reading Srila Prabhupada's purport, Prabhupada was speaking about these hippies who come from upper class
Speak loudly.
families.
Speak loudly. You have a soft voice.
As you're reading the purport, Srila Prabhupada was explaining how there's these hippies who come from upper class families, but they give up everything and then they live on the streets. And there's a term for that in the modern day, and it's oogles.
They're called oogles?
They're called oogles. It's like
Oogles.
It's a funny word.
You heard of that?
Like Google without the G, oogle.
Oogles. All right. Well, that's a new thing that we're hearing now. They're not hippies anymore. Now they're oogles.
No, there's hippies, and then I guess they're a type of hippie. But just to comment, you're explaining how we've had many devotees, but even for those who take initiation, who tread the path of bhakti and aspire to advance in Krishna consciousness, we still see that they fall away. And I think that it's interesting because Krishna reciprocates with his devotee. But for one who truly wants to make advancement in Krishna consciousness, it's kind of like I wouldn't say a do or die situation, but it's like you have to really aspire only for pure devotional service, which you kept emphasizing, which isn't easy. And I think that sometimes we find ourselves in the middle at the 50-50 mark, or sometimes we do feel like we're more surrendered, but sometimes we take back our surrender. But I was just reflecting and thinking, I truly admire those devotees who I can see like they have a goal for pure devotional service, and they're after, they're determined. Some devotees they want pure devotional service, and they could pretend that they want that, but they may be really good at masking that there's something else deep within, that they have material desires. And who's to say that more or less devotees have material desires? We are in these bodies, and we do have material contamination. But I just wanted to make the point that it's really a noble thing for those who can solely and wholly say they only want pure devotional service, and really exalt that as the topmost goal. and respect those who are actually aspiring for that, and only that exclusively.
Yeah, it's rare. And that's what we should all be aspiring for, right? Okay. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada, Ki? Jai.